Good evening. Faithful few, thank you for coming out. We welcome Joshua. Hello, Joshua. And you don't have to be too disappointed that it's not Brother Trevor. It's going to be okay. As Danita says, it's, everything, it's okay. The mic? I am not speaking loud. Okay, we'll take Sister Alina's prayer for our opening prayer. This is our introductory thought. This was maybe last week. Someone had this thought, and it impressed me. I wanted to impress you again if it didn't impress you. We are to surrender our hearts to God, that He may renew and sanctify us and fit us for His heavenly court. We are not to wait for some special time, but today we are to give ourselves to Him. It says, if you hear His voice, harden not your hearts, just right at that time, that's fine. Refusing to be the servants of sin. Do you imagine you can leave off sin a little at a time? But didn't you imagine you can leave off sin a little at a time? Some things you can leave off a little at a time. Don't you believe that? You eat less today than you did yesterday. You have less of whatever it is yesterday. Well, this doesn't seem to say that. Do you imagine you can leave off sin a little at a time? Oh, leave the accursed thing at once. Now, if I need correction, just let me know, or you just make the correction. Leave the accursed thing at once. So once you are impressed, once you are convicted, you leave it alone. Now, and that is not hard, that is not easy to do. But this is our counsel. Hate the things that Christ hates, love the things that Christ loves. Now my study tonight is called, Do You Need a Bodyguard? Now what do you need a bodyguard for? It's protection. But I am asking you not for protection. When you, as a child, you need protection, and your parents more or less gives you protection, guidance, your education, they care for you. But when you become an adult, you do not any longer need that. They were like your bodyguards. When you become an adult, you should not need that anymore. You do not need them anymore. You move out, you take care of yourself, you pay your own bills, you cook your food, etc. See what I mean? You see what I'm talking about? Right. We should know what to do, when to do, how to do. Okay? Because we're adults. Now, I hope you're not offended at this study. Okay? Now, we are almost at the beginning of the new year. And my point here is we want to be our own bodyguards. And it's a good time to start. Although in one sense the first day of the new year is no more to God than any other day, yet He often puts into the hearts of His children at that time a desire to begin the new year with new resolves. The first day is no more to God than any other day, that's true, but God is a timekeeper. God has specific times, in the Old Testament, He'll tell them on the first day of Abib and the 14th day of this month and so on. He's a timekeeper. So he puts it into our hearts. Now some of us, it doesn't matter. We can start anytime, but some of us, it's good to start at a specific time, and the new year is a good time to start. And he puts it into our hearts, that desire to begin the new year with new resolves. And we had to make those resolutions. That's what a resolve is, a resolution. It's become a byword now, resolutions, you know, because I believe people make resolutions that are unattainable almost, or they make too many. But we can make resolutions and we can work on them. Perhaps with plans to carry out some worthy enterprise, and with purposes to depart from the wrongs of the old year. That's a good purpose, that's a good resolve. And to live the new year with new determinations. Years ago, I made the resolve that I was going to attend worship every single day. I was not going to miss a day. And, you know, you have to make the resolve and then make sure. You know, you just have to have it in your mind. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I did it. Praise the Lord. I did it. I never missed worship one day. That was that year. But the point is, you can do it, right? You can do it. So I am suggesting to you that for this new year, you become your own bodyguard. You do not need a bodyguard. You yourself are your own bodyguard. Now, and this is my premise right here. As you enter the new year, let it be with an earnest resolve to have your course onward and upward, never going backward. Let your life be more elevated and exalted than it has hitherto been. See, it takes resolve to do this, actually. You don't have to write it down. You don't have to say, this is my resolve, but it's a resolve if you want to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to do this. Make it your aim not to seek your own interest and pleasure, but to advance the cause of your Redeemer. You can make yourself that cause, too. Make yourself that cause. Now, this is my premise right here. And not being your own bodyguard. Remain not in a position where you ever need help yourself, and where others have to guard you to keep you in the narrow way. This is it right here. That you don't need a bodyguard. Don't remain in that position, and we don't have to remain in that position where we always need help, where someone always has to be encouraging us. Not that encouragement is not bad. I'm just saying, let us help ourselves and not always be depending on others to guard us, to keep us. You know, we're always going on an off ramp. We're always doing what we shouldn't do, and someone has to talk to us. You may be strong to exert a sanctifying influence upon others. Aim to honor God in everything, always and everywhere. That aim is a resolve. Carry your religion into everything. You know, and it's in little things we can be our own bodyguard, not just in big moral questions. You know, you don't need to let folk be telling you, take your vitamins. You know, take your vitamins. Aren't you grown enough to take your vitamins? Aren't you? Nobody's answering, huh? We should be, right? I have to say we now because people have to be telling me to take my vitamins. Now, I have to resolve it's not going to be like that this year. I get a lecture and I have to take my vitamins, so I might as well take it, you know? Exercise, take your water, watch your diet. Right, Pat? exercise, go down to the gym. That is difficult. I haven't been there in this maybe 2 weeks, right? Almost 2 weeks. That's not good. You have to resolve. And it's not easy. It's not easy to get up in the morning early, dark, cold, and to make your way down to the gym. Because we used to do gym in the morning. It's not easy. But you have to resolve to do it. And it's not only for yourself. You may be a sanctifying influence upon others. You really help others when you do this. You help others. You encourage them to also come out, to also resolve. You see? It says, the angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Now, we acknowledge this, we know this, but do we really adhere? This means we adhere to God's will and way, and not always trying to be going contrary. You see? In not listening to the angels, in not listening to the Holy Spirit, in not listening to counsel. Angels of God are commissioned from heaven to guard the children of men. And yet, they're commissioned to guard us. But what do? We are our own bodyguard. We're too grown to come under their tutelage, so to speak. They draw away from their restraining influence and go where they can have communication with the evil angels. Now you say, oh, nobody's doing that. Why would we do that? Does this say we do that? Yeah, we do that. Whenever you get off the narrow way, you're doing that. And then the evil angels fasten impressions in their minds that they will never get rid of so long as they live. Just as going to the theater, billiard hall, and all such places lead them from the path of God to stand under the black banner of the Prince of Darkness. And do you see, they only have to fasten an impression on our mind. That's all they have to do. They don't have to give us a study. Just an impression. You know? It's just a feeling, this sense, just a little bit of doubt in our minds. And you know how that can be done too? Not with many words. In fact, remember how she says we can lie? You lift your eyebrows. That's all it may take. Remember, it does not take much. I saw that angels of God were looking sorrowfully toward you. They had left your side and were turning mournfully away. Where were you going? Why were they doing this? While Satan and his angels were grinning in exultation over you. If you had yourself battled with your doubts and not encouraged the devil to tempt you by talking out your unbelief and loving to dwell upon it, you would not have attracted the fallen angels about you in such numbers. So what did this person do, and what does it tell us that we should not do? Our doubts. And we may have doubts. That's okay. We may not understand something. That's okay. But we do not talk about it. We do not talk about it. Because that lets the enemy know. So then he can come with his temptations. He can come to tempt us. You see, we talk our unbelief and then we dwell upon it. So not only he comes, but all these fallen angels. And they come in numbers too. You chose to talk your darkness, you chose to dwell upon it, and the more you talk and dwell upon it, the darker and darker you grow. You are shutting out from you every ray of heaven's light, and a great gulf is coming between you and the only ones who can help you. We have to listen. See, the angels, in we always hear the voice saying, "This is the way, walk ye in it." Either from the Holy Spirit, or it may be from a person. This is accepting counsel. And we know all about accepting counsel. But we have to listen and not encourage our doubts and not speak our doubts. You have recklessly rushed upon the devil's battleground, and it is no marvel that your mind is so stupid and unfeeling. Now, it's not any of us in here, right? It's maybe those people out there who are, who we call apostates, who are in darkness because they just can't see the light. Well, let's make sure it's them and not us. Who are recklessly rushing upon the devil's battleground. Already has Satan, through his agents, poisoned the atmosphere you breathe. So what happens when you go on his side? He poisons the air, the atmosphere you breathe. You can't see anything. Already have evil angels telegraphed to his agents upon earth in regard to the course to be pursued toward you. Do you see how the enemy works? He has telegraphed. Telephone these days, or even now, what would it be? Phoned, texted, the quickest way. To his agents upon earth in regard to the course to be pursued toward you. So who is doing this talking to you to keep you in the broad way, to keep you away from where you should be, to keep you away from your brethren? Who is doing this? Agents upon earth, people, right? Other people. And this is one of the watchmen upon the walls of Zion to tell the people the time of night. And she's talking to a minister here. And she tells him, if you go down, you will not go alone. You will not go alone. When you go down, you do not go alone. This is why it's so important to keep on that narrow way. You never go alone. I saw that the angels of God are to gently chide, warn, and guard. Satan can never force back these holy angels from their charge. None can do this, but who? We can do that. If these individuals continue to grieve these tender, holy angels, if they go astray from their counsel and warnings, and choose an independent course of their own, they will drive these angels from them. They go astray from their counsel and warnings. Did you ever hear an angel speaking to you? Anybody? You have? Well, that's okay. Like I said, we have that voice, our conscience that tells us this is the way, walk ye in it. And we also hear counsel from others, right? And that's the main way, counsel. So do you need a bodyguard? Now this is some of the ways that we want to overcome this year and not constantly be needing a bodyguard. And this is from November 1936, symbolic code. And here are some things Brother Hardif told them back then, and we still, it is still extant today. Brother, sister, how is it with your soul? Pause here and examine yourself as to whether or not you have religiously put into practice all that you have heard the rods speak through the symbolic code and the other publications of present truth. What is your answer? Examine yourself. Have you put religiously into practice all that you have heard? All that you have heard from all the publications today. Health reform. Can you rejoice in that you have forever parted with the health-destroying, now this is 1936, the health-destroying flesh pots, cheeses, pickles, candies, and the rich pastries, and that you are no longer one who defies nature in the abuse of his stomach by eating between meals, bolting his food, overeating, mixing fruits and vegetables, and ignoring wrong combinations. Now, these are things that we know. Isn't that so? We know. So, we should not have anyone telling us this. We don't need anyone to tell us this. And we have progressive health reform, which is built on the same here. The unhealthful effects of sugar. We have been learning about this, the unhealthful effects of sugar. How do we not eat sugar? We need to get rid of eating all this sugar. So, how do we stop? How do we stop eating sugar? Well, we have substitutes, right? And we don't buy it in the first place, and we substitute. We have sugar substitutes. That's not easy too. If you have a sweet tooth, then it's very difficult to give up sweets. Isn't that so? Amen. Speak the truth. Highly processed foods, lack of exercise, inadequate sleep, overweight. We have to look at these things. In respect to all, what of the many specific instructions carried in the code from month to month concerning the brushing of the teeth? Again, we should know this. The brushing of the teeth, the care of the toothbrush, unkempt hair, and dirty fingernails. Specific, isn't it? God looks at your fingernails. The unnecessary sleeping of two in a bed. And I was looking at that and thinking, I believe at that time and before, I think single beds, or twin beds, were all they had. I read that queen and king size beds didn't come into being, so to speak, until the 50s. So, you update this as you come further on. The unnecessary sleeping of two in a bed. You have to have progressive light on that. You see that? But how to say, the toothpaste softens your gums. And I believe it's because there was no fluoride in it. Does anybody know that for sure? Huh? Because of the fluoride? Because I'm thinking fluoride only came into prominence in the 50s, you see. And this is before. That's what gave me that thought. But anyway, the point is here too, we have toothpaste and fluoride in the water. You see, that strengthens your gums. And for example, we may know how to strengthen our gums beside this. If you use baking soda and salt, that strengthens your gums. If you use salt alone every day, what does it do to the enamel on your teeth? It wears it away, right? So you have to know what to do. You have to know, you have to see progressive health reform. Dress reform. Have you ridded your person of the vain and useless stick pin, the racy tie, the fallen or rolled down socks? You know, I wonder if, was this a style, or was it just being lazy, fallen or rolled down socks? Because why would you go around with rolled down socks or fallen socks? The pretentious silk shirt. Now what's wrong with the silk shirt? The word there is pretentious. Sisters, are you heeding or ignoring the wearing of a head covering during prayer and at religious services? Have you lifted the necks, lengthened the sleeves, and dropped the skirts of your dresses? You know, this is still a problem today with sisters. This was 1936. Have you discarded the changeable suits of apparel, high-heeled shoes, perfume? Still a problem. Self-reform. Are your thoughts, energies, and means being exclusively devoted to the acquisition of a home, automobile, radio, furniture, finery, and sundry other luxuries and sumptuaries? We can stop right there. Is this your goal? You see? Are your thoughts, energies, and means exclusively devoted to this? While you allow the closing work for the church to cripple along as best it can. House reform. What I'm saying again is, we know this. We should not have anybody telling us about it, and we should be our own bodyguard. From now, from the new year, keep your house immaculately clean, within and without. I don't get my without so much, but within especially the floors, furniture, and dark corners. Remember that uncovered and unclean cabinets and toilets kill the oxygen. Have the room attractive and orderly, everything in its place. Remember that cleanliness is next to godliness, and that heaven-like law and order save energy, means, and time. Have the home attractive and orderly. I remember Sister White says, she went to a home, and she says the chairs seemed to say, "Come sit in me." Remember that? Come sit in me. They look so comfortable and welcoming. The home must be kept pure and clean. Unclean, neglected corners in the house will tend to make impure, neglected corners in the soul. Remember this. Unclean, neglected corners in the house will tend to make impure, neglected corners in the soul. Mothers begin early to inculcate pure thoughts. And listen how it's very easy how it's done. Fit up their rooms, that's the children's rooms, in a cleanly, tasteful, attractive manner. From the room to their thoughts, and vice versa. Now here's another area in where we can be our bodyguard this year, this new year. In self. The true Davidian is never sensitive. Foolish accusations never trouble him. He does not get upset about them. If something is said against him, he never gets hurt over it. especially if he's not guilty of the thing. He does not retaliate. He lets the vain thing die of itself. The more you talk about it and the more you dwell on it, the more it's there. And it's affecting you and affecting others when you talk. But you just let it die of itself. Don't even talk about it. It will die. His mind never dwells on anything that would make him feel hurt. Now, this is the true Davidian is never sensitive. And we are sensitive. We just have a spectrum of sensitivity. Some down here, some over here, some in the middle. We all are sensitive. But the true Davidian is never sensitive. So we have to get to that point. Foolish accusations do bother us. We do get hurt. We do retaliate in one way or another. Even maybe in our thoughts we retaliate. He lets no discouragement come into his thoughts. Not even if all forsake him. He never needs to be handled with gloves. Kid gloves, as they say. He never needs to be handled with gloves because he's not sensitive. When you have to handle a person with gloves, you know what that means. You have to be very careful. You have to think about what they're going to do, what they're going to say, how they're going to react. Never retaliate when people say unkind things about you. Pay them back with a blessing and God will bless you. It's not rendering evil for evil. But it's easy to say, right? Do not retaliate. So far as you can do so, remove all cause for misapprehension. Avoid the appearance of evil. This is difficult for some of us. But this is what it says. It says in the Bible, it says it here. Avoid the appearance of evil. Some folk think that, well, it's okay. You do not need to look at me. But it says avoid the appearance of evil. That is your responsibility. Do all that lies in your power without the sacrifice of principle to conciliate others. To conciliate others, what does that mean? When we conciliate others, we live in peace. We try to live in peace with everybody, right? This is what Paul says. Do everything possible in your part to live in peace with everybody. Do not have your feelings on your fingertips, for the Hatter says. We should not allow our feelings to be easily wounded. If we have our feelings on our fingertips, it shows, we are sensitive. We are sensitive. But we are not to allow our feelings to be easily wounded. We are alive to hurts, offenses, upsets. It is because men do not now have that spirit that their personal feelings are so easily hurt for any little thing done against them. And since the spirit of grace causes one to mourn not for self, it is understandable that to pity oneself and to be hurt over what others do or say against him is a sure sign that rather than being imbued with the spirit of grace, he is imbued with the spirit of whom? The devil. Is that an easy saying here? You are imbued with the spirit of the devil when every little thing bothers you, when you are so very sensitive. You can call, there are many other words for sensitive, but you know what I'm talking about. You pity yourself, you get hurt over everything, you're imbued with the spirit of the devil. Remember that. Now I wanted to go over this that Sister Sister Ibanet had on last Sabbath morning, I believe. Again, let's look over these and see where we can improve and work on ourselves. And this is January 1984. Did you keep all the commandments? Did you follow the golden rule at all times? Did you joyfully comply with all the requirements of fellowship certification? Did you cheat the Lord of any time or tithes or other means? Did you put the Lord, His message, and His association first and last and best at all times? Did you see here, we put the Lord, His message, and what? His association. People do not put the Lord's association in this category at all. Association? Excuse me? We put the Lord and His message. That's what's important. Did you aid and abet your children in wasting time or means on detrimental and or worthless things? And if you don't have children, yourself. Did you succumb to the art of the merchandiser, window dresser, and to the beckoning of the credit siren and money lender? This is really cool because it says the art of the merchandiser. See, those who are selling you, it's an art. And you succumb to him, to the seller. They do not go and say, come in and buy. They have tricks. It's an art to get you in there, into the store. Because once they get you in, you're hooked. You know that. Don't bother. You go in for one thing and you say it to yourself too. You say it to your friends. But when you go in there, you see all kinds of things you need. True thing. Okay, that's interesting. It's the art of the merchandiser, the window dresser, the beckoning of the credit siren. Did you spend more time in Egypt than in Zion? Did you spend more time in Egypt than in Zion? You know, this reminds me that brother told me, go to town and buy food for at least, the groceries or whatever you need for 2 or 3 weeks. Then you don't have to go to town. And I said, but I want to go to town. This is it here. I want to spend more time in Egypt than in Zion. Did you buy more of the truth or of Babylonish garments and dainties? See, if you don't go, you won't be buying. Of course, there's the online too. Did you clear your tables of all the abominations? Mercy. Who agrees with me? Did you indulge or discipline yourselves and your children? Most times we indulge. And that's why we have to make ourselves our own bodyguard and stop. Stop even telling self what to do. Self is against you. Okay? So it's not just other people, but we have to tell self what to do. You know what to do. We have to have ourselves as the bodyguard even against self. We have to discipline ourselves because the indulgence is self. Did you speak well of others as much as you spoke critically of them? This is something you have to catch yourself. Wait, that was kind of critical. Did you speak well of others? Did you loosen and drop or tighten the reins on the tongue of gossip? And you can gossip very easily. You don't realize you're doing it. Did you study the Bible, the testimonies, and the rod as much as you listened to the radio, viewed TV, and read periodicals and newspapers, etc.? Again, what is it says, put away a time for the Bible, the testimonies. What is it? You remember? It's Gospel Workers 100. Now I remember the reference. I can't remember what it says. What does it say? Guard jealously your hours for study of the Bible. Self-examination. Okay. Most times you remember the thing and not the reference, right? Okay. Did you spend as much time in secret with God as you spent in chit-chat and common talk with others? Did you spend as much time in secret with God at all? That too takes a specific time. When you set aside your time for worship, and it has to be something where you discipline yourself that this is your worship time, this is your time with God. Did you strive to care for the needy as well as for yourself and your own? Did humility conquer or fall before pride, egotism, conceit, and opinionation? Did humility conquer or fall? Did you surmise evil and judge your brother, or seek to befriend, encourage, and help him? First we surmise evil and judge, and then we go and help him. That's the truth. Were you scrupulously honest in your words and your dealings with all men? Did you study to see your responsibilities and duties and faithfully bear the one, your responsibilities, and discharge the other, your duties? Were you a busy bee or a busybody? That's a good one. A busy bee or a busybody? Alliteration. Were you a critic and a Miraz or a Caleb, a Nehemiah? Were you a success for Satan or for God? So it all boils down to this, being a success for Satan or a success for God. And you have, let's say just during the day, part of the day you have 8 hours. And during that 8 hours you can be a success for God in some parts and a success for Satan in some parts. But we want to be a success for God 24/7, right? Or you were more of a success for Satan. So, are you resolved by God's grace to be an overcomer of every failure this year, or beginning right now, this year, this new year? Are you resolved by God's grace to be an overcomer of every failure? Now you should be saying yes, yes, yes. Okay? So now I was thinking, how do we die to self? And here are some ways. Talk. This is what the Spirit of Prophecy says. Let us not talk of our weakness and inefficiency, but of Christ and His strength. Now this is a way we overcome. And you know what it says? As a man thinketh, as a man talketh. You see? Don't even think of your weakness and inefficiency. That's self too, Don't talk of your weakness and inefficiency. And that's kind of my deal. Don't take it away. Do not talk of your weakness and inefficiency. Talk of Christ and His strength. Pray. We have to pray more fervently, believe more fully, and try again with more steadfastness, more principle, to grow into the likeness of our Lord. Pray more fervently. Believe more fully. It says when you pray, believe and receive. Believe that you are going to believe that Lord will hear you, and that you will receive what you have prayed for. And that takes faith. Pray more fully, fervently, believe more fully, and try again. Think, whenever you are tempted to sin, stop and think about it. If you can. Stop and think about it. Why are you tempted to sin? Now sometimes you see it in front of you and you see, this is temptation in front of me, I can see it. So, and you have time to look at it. Sometimes you don't. But why are you tempted to sin? It's because Satan has told you that you'll be better off if you sin. Satan has told you in so many words, this is a good deal here. At that point, you need to remember that it's a lie. You are better off. You are never better off by sinning. Satan is a liar. You are never better off, and he always lies. Sing, when things go crossways at your homes, strike up a song about the matchless charms of the Son of God. And I tell you, when you touch this strain, Satan will leave you. And if he leaves you, there's no temptation, right? You're an overcomer by singing. Strike up a song. And see, God, this is Moses, God was the constant vision before him. He never lost sight of his face. Now, as I said before, sometimes you want to go somewhere or do something where you have to tell the Lord, please stay outside. But we don't want to do that. We want to be like Moses, where we see God always before us or beside us. Do you need a bodyguard? Again, this is the point here. Remain not in a position where you ever need help yourself and where others have to guard you to keep you in the narrow way. If you know something, then don't have people be constantly telling you. And this has happened. We constantly have to counsel people. The same thing you have to be counseled about. Okay? Sometimes. I get a lot of counsel at home. Okay. I have my notes, but I can't read them. Okay. So I thought this was interesting. This is the prayer of Assisi, Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Instead of people having to bring this to me, let me bring it to them. Let me bring the peace and the pardon, faith, hope. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. Let me not seek to be consoled, to be understood, to be loved, but to console, to understand, and to love. Right? So my closing thought again. We are to surrender our hearts to God that He may renew and sanctify us and fit us for His heavenly court. And I want to go to the thought there in blue. Oh, I think my time is done. No, I got 14 minutes. Do you imagine you can leave off sin a little at a time? Leave the accursed thing at once. That is a rhetorical question, isn't it? That's a rhetorical question. When I was thinking of this, I thought of Mark Twain. You know what he said? I can give up smoking anytime. I've done it many times. That's not the kind of giving up we want to do. That's not the leaving off of sin a little at a time. We want to leave it off permanently, right now. And I'm telling you, I'm not telling you this thing is easy. Who thinks it's easy? I know it's not easy. And I hope you're not offended. And this study may have just been for me. But I hope that you will, if you believe that you should not need a bodyguard, then with me this coming year, start believing and doing. Thank you. God bless you.